I know this is a really difficult moment for so many different types of people, and that this moment isn't going to last forever, but it is incredibly disheartening to have spent the last 17 years of my life hustling and grinding to be in higher education and STEM fields like science and neuroscience, and be a freshly minted PhD with my doctorate in neuroscience, and still struggle so much to not only find a job, but find one that pays a livable wage. What do you mean I have the highest educational degree that you can get in the entire world, something that only 2% of people in the world have? And I'm struggling to find a job that pays more than a fast food manager position.
So wait a minute. This is saying a fast food manager position, wherever it is that she lives or is at, varies between $54,000 and $76,000 a year. Academic postdoc, um, 59 to 63, right? Okay, let's continue.
If you factor in the time that I took to do my bachelor's degree, then work for 5.5 years after the bachelor's degree doing like highly technical research jobs, research associate doing stereotaxic, cranial windowing surgeries, to advance, research about how our visual system processes information, managing an entire research laboratory at the VA Puget Sound where I did like literally every aspect of the research, budgeting, training people, hiring people, conducting the research, writing, grant writing. Like I had 4 published manuscripts from that one experience. Then a 5-year doctorate program where I was working truly like 60 hours a week, sometimes a lot more, just because the workload was so intense, and the pay was so little. So I also went into further debt to do that. And my grad student experience was very successful, objectively. If you look at my resume, it's like first person in the history of my department to secure over $300,000 in fellowships and research grants and external funding. Co-founded a nonprofit to support underrepresented folks into STEM fields. Early career awards, 5 published manuscripts. Like I was busy. What I find so disheartening about this conversation too is that people will say, oh, well, just don't go into research, don't go into science, don't go into higher education if you want to be rich. That shouldn't be the point.
So wait a minute. So we understood exactly what we were getting ourselves into, and you were looking to be in academia and research and so on and so forth. Chances are working for a major university, and excuse my ignorance because I am a C student, a lifetime C student, and so I admit that they are smarter than me. But my point is that so you understood exactly what you were getting yourself into. And it sounds like you went into an enormous amount of debt doing it. And the majority of what you do is research and grant writing and looking for funding to continue to do whatever it is that the organization does that you are a part of. And you didn't know that it paid what it was going to pay and it wasn't going to be financially rewarding. There's a lot of positions, and this is just my personal opinion, so don't take it to mean anything. There's a lot of positions or a lot of jobs, right? Even fields of study which is not necessarily related to what she's doing, but just in general, that are not financially rewarding. I almost look at it as something that is a privilege to do if you are a person that comes from an environment that have resources already, or you have other investments, or you have things that you can lean on from a financial perspective. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get paid, and it doesn't mean that you're not educated, and it doesn't mean that maybe you shouldn't make more money or you shouldn't find a way to utilize your intelligence or your field or your research or whatever it is that you've learned in order to continue to monetize it in some way, shape, or form. And maybe you just need to understand how to monetize things better outside of what you do professionally. But I guess my thing is just that those are almost nice to haves. That doesn't necessarily mean that the marketplace is what people are willing to pay for whatever it is that you do. The marketplace is determined by your value add, right? And your value add is determined by how much money and resource you bring into said organization or place, right? So hypothetically speaking, let's just say somebody like me who largely made their bones in software engineering in the technology field, um, within banking, right? So I took a legacy environment or old time environment, and then I, took the expertise that was largely being utilized in the technological field or technological companies like the Facebooks and the Metas and the Googles and so on and so forth, because you've been recruited to work at those companies, right? But instead, you decided to work within a legacy framework and then bring that technology to that. Well, you will be highly valued, right? Because you're taking something that needs to still compete in the 2025s and beyond. And so they need your expertise. And so they're willing to overpay you in order to come into that field instead of letting the large technology companies recruit you in order to continue to push their agenda forward. So, I understood, for example, what I was getting myself into before I did it. And it seems like a lot of women specifically. And I did go through, some of her comments of this video to better understand exactly where she was coming from. She doesn't like the system. She don't like the game that's being played that she signed up to be a part of, that she got out all of these student loans and debt in order to be a part of. And she thinks that just because it's her passion and just because it may even be important, that the field that she went into, and more importantly, the environment that she's trying to find a job in, was going to change for her. And it's almost like, are y'all not aware of what y'all got going on? Are y'all not aware of what the opportunities are before you get yourself into it, or if they were going to shrink or all of this stuff? And maybe not, right? Because she said she spent 17 years. So maybe you know, she was naive when she was getting into it 17 years ago, and she didn't think that it would translate into what it is that she's doing today. Or maybe she thought that her student loans would be forgiven because she would be working for the federal government for the rest of her life or something. I don't know. But it almost just, it's amazing. Like, you can't determine the marketplace and the value that you have in it just because you are highly accomplished or have a lot of degrees. Probably just gonna have to put the fries in the bag. And guess what? Even me, right, as a person that has made a significant amount of money and have been, you know, traveled to some of the highest heights inside of corporate America, I'm not afraid to put the fries in the bag in order to run up that bag. I will go and do it today. A lot of people even laughed at me when I went and took another opportunity. It was pretty lucrative, but took another opportunity to work in corporate America just because I had my own business and I was doing well and content creation is booming. They laughed at me. I don't have no pride when it comes to the opportunities, but she believes that it's I believe, right? Based off of some of the comments that I've seen that come along with some of her commentary in her video, it's almost as though she believed that it's a system set up against them and it's white supremacy and all of this other type of stuff. Let me hear the rest of what she has to say. I don't want to prejudge too much.
We should not only let class privileged people advance scientific discovery. We can see how horrific that has been for scientific discovery up until this point.
Told you, it's a privilege.
Class privileged people should not be the only ones able to get an education and advance our fields. That's ridiculous logic. And nobody's trying to get rich off of science, but like a livable wage, one that says, hey, you can afford to live in the city that you are working. You can afford to pay off some of your student loans that you had to take out of necessity to get to this point. And you might have a little bit extra to be able to support your aging family, or your children. That should not be a ridiculous ask. There's a big difference between being a millionaire and being rich, and just affording the cost of living. And it makes me so sad too, because although I have really been an advocate for getting more people into the sciences and STEM fields, especially Black and Indigenous people with intersecting marginalized identities, and now I feel like I'm being put in this really interesting position where I don't even know if I want to advocate for people to take this path. If the average cost of college education in state is approaching $30,000 a year, who can afford that? Literally, who is affording education in this country? It's not everybody, and it's certainly not those on the margins of the margins. So I feel very torn about not only advancing and continuing on this career path, but then advocating for other people to do the same. Even though science has been my passion from day one, science has been something that I felt called to do. But unfortunately, people with class privilege and people who are debt-free get to have the ability to explore that passion more than those who don't. Last thing I'll say that's really disheartening is just watching how
She's not wrong. And I just said the same thing. She's not wrong. But again, we're letting our feelings and our emotions get in the way of the truth, and that because she knew this before she got into it, should she have advocated for or took out a bunch of debt thinking that she was going to be any different than what she was familiar with when she decided to sign up for this?
capitalism is just keeping people just so stuck in survival mode, just trying to get by the next, day, week, month, year, and preventing people from having the capacity, the time, not only just to live, but also to fight back against so many injustices that are happening around our country and around the world. So it's clearly by design, right? Take somebody, just make them struggle to afford to live. That way they'll be too busy to.
Yeah, I'm a Neanderthal, and again, I'm a C student. So my advice is to get with a man that could fund, because that's all really a lot of guys do, right? That's what we do as men, as husbands, as high earners and providers, that we pick something simple, we add value into the world, we capitalize off of it, and then women they complain about capitalism. So you're gonna have to get you a man. Maybe I'll expand this conversation into the Millionaire Morning Show. Get you a man that can take care of you and your lifestyle, and then allow for you to do whatever your dilly dallying is. Let women start businesses. We fund them when we know they losing operations, but we give it to them anyway, just so they'll have something to do and have a passion project, stuff like that, right? But I don't know. Y'all, let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon link is in the description. Tej Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I love y'all. Appreciate you. I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.